Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. As expected, my video rollout has been dramatically slowed down lately. I won't be making excuses, but I promise you I have not been idle. That being said, I do have a handful of videos that I'm quite eager to make. The only thing I need is time, which essentially is the problem because time is so fleeting lately. No matter, here we are today to talk about a film that I've been highly anticipating since the moment I really heard about it sometime last year. I think the working title at the time was Disappointment Boulevard, and all I knew further than that was that Joaquin Phoenix would be starring in the film, and that was being filmed at least partly in Montreal. Yay, Montreal once again. Anyways, that was more than enough to pique my curiosity. I've talked about Ari Aster in a previous video where I mentioned him along with Jordan Peele, Robert Eggers, who seem to form this trio of horror renaissance filmmakers that are revolutionizing the film industry in my opinion. Though I've already talked about it before, I'm going to briefly go over my feelings about his films because I do feel it's worth reiterating. I think he's one of the most promising and groundbreakingly unique filmmakers of the past 5 years. Hereditary and Midsommar, which came out a year apart, were his directorial debuts, were shockingly original films that left me reeling long after the film's credits have ended. It's been roughly 5 years since either of those films come out, and honestly, nothing before or since then has come anywhere close to the kind of madness and creativity we saw in those films. So, the million-dollar question is, can Ari Aster get a third knockout in a row with Beau is Afraid? Frankly, it's a bit of an impossible question to answer. This is the kind of film that's going to have a whole range of reviews. You'll have 0 out of 10s, 1 out of 10s, 6 out of 10s, 10 out of 10s, or just a what the fuck out of 10. It is a perplexing film to process, let alone score. Incidentally, some of my friends and family have been asking me about this film and asking like, hey, how would you describe it? What is the film about? And for the life of me, I don't even know where to begin describing this film. So let's try this again, only this time live on camera. Joaquin Phoenix plays Beau, a man who clearly has mommy issues. Beau must be the most depressing character I've seen on screen in a while, a true loser that has nothing but terrible things happen to him over and over again. His mission is essentially to go visit his mother, but this dystopian world has other plans for him and makes that an impossible task to accomplish. This film is a bewildering 3-hour odyssey and a back-to-back series of horrendously unfortunate events. Good lord, what have I seen? Though the critics score may vary, I imagine that not one person leaving the theater will at least vary in that regard. Once again, good lord, what have I seen? There are some things in this film that I just wish I could unsee, but that's just not gonna happen. I think the first thing that struck me the most about this film is its oppressive atmosphere. The camera angles, choice of words, or in many cases the lack of words creates this lingering, all-consuming silence. All that paired with this thick buzzing soundtrack which subtly envelops you with a dark and foreboding sensation is a force to be reckoned with. It is actually curious because many times when I think about it, there's a very bright and sunlit atmosphere to the film, which initially betrays this truly nightmarish and perpetual dread that fills your soul at every moment of this film. This is some truly dark and unsettling cinematic content unlike anything you've ever seen before. A moment ago I mentioned that the film feels nightmarish, and by God is that true. This film made me feel like I lived on hell itself. It is a sickening, hostile, psychedelic, and anxiety-inducing world that they've created here. Not for the faint of heart. You have been warned, and I will warn you again at the end of the review. And this leads me to talk about what may very well be my favorite aspect of this film. The set decoration is simply mesmerizing. Each frame is loaded with information. There are minute details hidden in each frame of the film which will make it a real treat to rewatch this film. That is, if you have the stomach to go see this film a second time, which I imagine won't be the case for most, if not all, people. Though even if you only live through one viewing of this film, you're in for quite the whirlwind of artistic genius in environment design. Every goddamn frame of this film is like a beautiful dystopian masterpiece painting from hell. Furthermore, I love the use of text in Beau is Afraid. There are several moments where the audience is invited to read written letters or graffiti polluting every wall of Beau's apartment building. Both me and the guy sitting next to me were both leaning a bit further from our chairs to get a closer look at some of the details written in the environments. Honestly, I think most of us at the cinema were just so fully immersed and invested and curious to just peel through all the layers in the world. As a final few comments on the technical aspects of the film, I do love some of the creative camera movements and angles in this film. I'm sure that on a second viewing, I will find even more cool details to uncover. But as it is with one viewing, I'm absolutely floored with the aesthetic qualities of this film. There are also several clever cinematography and editing tricks, for example, some of those seamless day-to-night transitions in the film. And to add on top of all of that, the cherry on top, there's this wonderful, exhilarating animated sequence integrated into the film. That whole sequence in the woods with the play, breathtaking. What a unique and unforgettable cinematic experience, however perplexing it may indeed be. Yeah, the film follows a very unconventional film structure, which on one hand, I do applaud. I enjoy pop culture films every now and then, but I'd be lying to you if I didn't admit that, yes, I am kind of exhausted from the overly formulaic form of most modern films and TV shows. Now, with that being said, there is nothing formulaic or predictable about Beau is Afraid. Truly, this is as Kafkaesque of a film-going experience as I've ever seen before in my life. What's even more baffling is that buried within this truly horrifying, nightmarish film-going experience is a comedic heartbeat at the center of it. Frankly, myself and most of the crowd were laughing quite regularly throughout the film. Granted, I think a lot of that laughter is kind of a defense mechanism of the absolute madness we saw on screen. Once again, I wish there are some things I could just erase from my mind in this film. But on the other hand, the unconventional structure may be a massive contributing factor as to why many people just won't be able to invest themselves into the film. I think on this note particularly, it's going to take a lot more viewing and analysis of the film to extract and analyze those foundational elements of the film. But look no further than the protagonist himself, for example. As much as I love Joaquin Phoenix's portrayal of this loser of a character, it truly feels like every terrible thing that happens to him in this world is completely out of his control. This makes it a problematic technical feature for a protagonist when he has zero agency to any of the terrible things that are happening in his miserable life. It is a weird thing when you can't identify with the main character in any immediately tangible way. And while I'm highlighting some of the weaker aspects of the film, some 3-hour films go by like a flash in a pan. Beau is Afraid is not one of them. It goes at an excruciating, slow snail crawl of a pace. Man, Ari Aster takes a sweet ass time to take us on this bad trip. I promise you, you don't need any drugs going to this film. The film will take care of that for you. And if you do happen to be going to see this film high as a kite, all I have to say to you is good luck. It was nice knowing you. Jokes aside, I gotta say, I respect the man for sticking to his guns and truly achieving the vision he had in his mind. Many, if not all people, will not vibe with this film at all. And frankly, I can sympathize with those 1 out of 10 reviews. It's a wild movie. And I have a hard time imagining that this film is going to become a box office success. It has a $35 million budget, which is quite a lot for an indie experimental film of its nature. So I think this film is going to need a bit of a miracle to become a profitable success. Now, speaking of miracles, I do think it's kind of mind-boggling that this film even got made in the first place. Obviously, this film wouldn't have been possible without the critical and financial success of films like Hereditary and Midsommar. And even so, that was quite a miracle for those films because those films themselves are wild. Though that being said, they are tame in comparison to Beau is Afraid, which is no small feat if you have seen either of those two films. So truly, I do think it's a blessing that we get such a brave and creative filmmaker like Ari Aster who gets to have a carte blanche to make exactly the kind of film he had in mind. For me, this film is the physical embodiment of that old axiom, to thine own self be true. Doubtless there will be other great films that come out in 2023, and already we've had a couple excellent ones so far. But even so, I don't think there's anything that's going to come anywhere close to the madness that is Beau is Afraid. It is a profoundly unique, if albeit a severely traumatizing film-going experience. Honestly, I may be in the minority here, but to each their own. And for my part, I'm gonna give Beau is Afraid a 9.5 out of 10. I think this is a psychedelic experimental masterpiece. And I don't say this lightly, but on several occasions the film made me think back to my love of the old original Silent Hill games and some of the masterworks of a filmmaker like David Lynch himself. Once again, I do not say that lightly. And if my word isn't enough for you, just listen to Martin Scorsese gush all over Beau is Afraid and Ari Aster's previous films after having watched Beau is Afraid for a third time in a row.
Most extraordinarily new voices in world cinema right here.
Yeah, if the Grandmaster himself can't convince you that there's truly something spectacular happening here, I don't know what will. But once again, this is a film that I probably won't recommend to anyone, if I'm being perfectly honest, as much as I do love it. It is a feast for the eyes and a deliciously morbid enigma to decipher. Yeah, I'm gonna be digesting this one for a minute. And once again, what have I seen? Alright, that is all for today. As promised, more videos are upcoming, though I may need a bit more time. My life has gotten quite busy and full lately, though I feel very much fulfilled. Exciting times. But yeah, the YouTube channel may suffer a bit in terms of productivity. C'est la vie. No matter, as always, wishing you and your loved ones nothing but the best. Take care and talk to you as soon as possible.